everyone. Thanks for joining us for the new release feature Roundup hosted by Jibestream, the premier indoor mapping platform provider. I'm Meg, the Customer Success Manager at Jibestream.
And I'm Akshay, I'm the Product Manager for the SDKs. And today we're going to give you an overview of the new features for our platform, as well as talk through some of the use cases that our clients have already done. I'm going to get Meg started. She's going to show you features, and then we'll do a demo later on.
Okay. So today we're going to go over the Jibestream indoor mapping platform generally, as well as what's new. Then Akshay is going to go through some live demos, and we'll go through some client favorite features.
So the Jibestream indoor mapping platform, what does it do? So what the platform actually does is we have a platform that allows you to take indoor maps and really put it into any application that you want. So whether that's a web app, whether it's an Android app or an iOS app, and build out the use case that really works for you. Today we're definitely going to be talking about some of the popular use cases, but really this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot that you can do. And Meg's going to get started and show you some of the new features and current features.
Cool. All right, so what is included in the Jibestream platform? So we use vector-based maps. We're hardware agnostic, so we can integrate with any Blue Dot technology or real-time location system. We provide special services, so map digitization, including updates, major map changes, that sort of thing, as well as technical support, training on map changes, training on our CMS, as well as the SDKs. The platform provides wayfinding. You can connect to external data sources through external IDs. For example, data sources like parking information, and integrate that into the mapping platform. You can create and configure venues. You can upload maps, and you can manage almost any object on your map in the CMS. And last but not least, you can create a custom look and feel via our 3 SDKs, iOS, web, and Android. With regards to what's actually new in the Jibestream indoor mapping platform, there's a few really cool things that we want to highlight. First is our awesome asset tracking plugin. So our asset tracking plugin gives you the ability to take your asset tracking data provided by your RTLS or IP provider and show it on a map. So it can track things like moving assets and actually allows you to wayfind to these moving assets. If you're en route to a moving asset, or if one of your facilities team is en route to a moving asset, it'll actually reroute the user based on where the asset's going. So it's super smart in that way. There's also the option to wayfind to the nearest asset, which is really helpful in, for example, a hospital situation when looking for something like an infusion pump, in an airport when looking for a wheelchair, things like that. It's also really helpful for facilities management. So, for example, if you need to send a technician to a room that has projectors that only have 5% light bulb light left, it can be used for something like that. On top of the actual putting your assets on a map, our SDKs can customize the look of the assets on the map. So you can change the color, the stroke width, you can change the confidence circle around each asset. And I mentioned this before, but as always, we're hardware agnostic. So if you're already working with an RTLS or IPS provider, we can definitely work with them to make sure that we get your asset data on our maps. Okay, so next is my personal favorite. My clients have been asking for something like this for a really long time, so I'm really excited about it. There's so many cool things that you can do. We've got an analytics plugin, which will help you gain so much insight into map usage, and then you can use it to make educated business decisions and actually use it to sell things, and I'll kind of explain what I mean in a second. So we kind of thought about it. We thought maybe we should build a Google Analytics plugin, but then we realized that a lot of you already have analytics platforms that you're using. So we decided that we would build the ability to push map-related analytics to any engine that you're already using via our SDKs. Some of the examples of things that can be tracked are amenity clicks, destination clicks, wayfinding paths, as well as map load time. So a really cool way that I think that this could be used is in a retail situation. So if you can see which stores are being clicked on the most, you can actually use that to make really educated decisions in terms of what you want to sell. So if you have an empty store a couple doors down from a destination that's being clicked on all the time, it's going to be really easy to to lease that out. And then same thing with ad space. So if you know that there's a certain area that people are going to and specifically clicking on in your app way more than other ones, you can probably sell that ad space for a significant amount of money. Okay, so next is ClearPath. We've had a wayfinding algorithm in the platform for some time, but this is actually an improved algorithm that's optional to turn on and off via the SDK. It creates a natural and intuitive walking path, and most importantly, it actually removes the number of, it decreases the number of steps and instructions given to the user if you're using text directions. So ClearPath does this in a number of ways, but one example of how it does this is that instead of giving the user instructions to walk around any possible obstacle in a hallway, so things like fountains, advertising kiosks, etc., it draws a straight path through these obstacles to the next major decision point on a route. Another way that this improves the user experience is by adding other destinations as landmarks at decision points rather than saying, in 500 meters, turn left. So it would say, turn right at C and D on the screenshot here, and so that would be something like Gap and Banana Republic, for example. Okay, next is zones. So zones are defined structural areas on your map. They can actually be added to the system in the CMS or via our APIs. And then admins can add and edit the zones in the CMS and add destinations and waypoints to the zones. The SDKs can then do all sorts of things, but for example, highlight units, highlight zones, for example, a hospital wing or a food court. And then your end users can actually search those zones and wayfind to them. So, they know that they want to eat, they go to your app, they search for the food court, and it shows them an overlay over that whole zone. Okay, we've made a ton of CMS changes. So any of our clients who are on our previous version of the system will be able to tell that we've made a lot of changes just by looking at this screenshot. But some of the examples of the things that we've made are an automatic save of unpublished changes. So this means that you don't lose your work if you take a phone call and forget to save and then come back to the computer after the timeout has already passed, which has happened to me so many times that this is an amazing feature. If your computer crashes, if the internet cuts out, that sort of thing. Any of the changes that you've made will stay there, especially if you've been plotting like hundreds and hundreds of waypoints. This is super helpful. We've also given customers the option to make venues active or inactive while they work on testing new features and getting ready to go live. So this just means that you don't use up any of your venue licenses while you test, and you can play around with any of the new features that we release or anything that you're not using that you think you might want to use for your next venue. We've also given customers the ability to give account permissions based on user roles within your company. So if you work for a company that has multiple buildings and they're all mapped in our system, you might have some admins who have access to every single building, and then you would give access to the specific to people working at specific buildings just on a building by building basis. And then we also have some amazing new SDK rendering engines. So we've used the latest rendering engine technology for each of our SDKs. This has significantly improved panning, scaling, and zooming and rotating capabilities. It's also reduced overall development costs and significantly shortens the time to market. All right, and with that, I will pass it over to Akshay.
Hey everyone. Okay, so I'm going to move into the demo portion of our webinar, but just a couple of things before we do that. Why would you need Jibestream? So you would definitely need us if you have an app without a map and you have a use case that relates to mapping. That would be a great purpose for getting Jibestream. You want to bring tabular data to life on a map. So we look at tabular data all day long, and it shows up in an Excel sheet. But sometimes if you put it on top of a map, it adds a lot more value to the data. Plus, you can see trends that you would never be able to see from an Excel sheet. So, for example, revenue data or spatial data. How much is a meeting room being used compared to another one? Or is this entire wing making a lot of money, whereas another wing is not making a lot of money? So great use cases there. Facilities data, overlaying the status of infusion pumps, things like that on top of a map. Wait times in a hospital. So there's a lot of use cases of bringing tabular data on top of a map so you can get some spatial context to them. You want to integrate with indoor positioning to provide the blue dot experience. So as everybody's probably very familiar with the Google Maps or the Apple Maps experience of having a blue dot and navigating on the outdoor space, that experience is now being brought indoors using a technology like Jibestream as well as indoor positioning providers or RTLS systems. So that would be a great use case for using Jibestream technology. And lastly, tracking your assets. So there's a lot of asset providers that allow you to track, where wheelchairs are in hospitals or in malls, but they are also on, they're also tabular data right now. So you can take that data, put it on top of a map, and then wayfind to it, or wayfind to the nearest one, as mentioned. Assets is something that I will be showing you in a little bit from a demo perspective as well. So the demo today is going to be consisting of three main parts. So there's going to be the CMS part, which will be relevant to the admins who manage the mapping data. There's going to be a developers part of it, which will show you how a developer can use the SDK and all the resources available for the developers to use the SDK. And then lastly, I'll show you a mobile app that has a few use cases that are relevant and that we've talked about before. Okay, so the demo. So the first thing I did is I logged into the CMS. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh this. And you're going to see that as I log in, I now have 9 venues active here. These are all my venues. And you can see there are a bunch of Jibestream fake accounts, obviously. There are internal venues. And then we've got a few malls for Toronto that we've actually mapped as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Jibestream Retail. So this is the one that I want to manage right now. And it's just going to go ahead and load the map data. And now you can see that the mapping data has been loaded, and you can see the map with a whole bunch of dots on it. Those dots are known as waypoints. So for anybody who isn't familiar with a waypoint, it's essentially like a stopping place on the path, and it allows you to put amenities, destinations, labels, things like that on top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in. And you guys can see as I zoom in, you can see the various destinations are now showing up on the map. You can go ahead and you can manage destinations here. You can manage amenities. So the difference between an amenity and a destination, for anybody who isn't familiar, is a destination is a unique place, whereas an amenity is it's a place you want to go, but it doesn't matter which one you go to. For example, a washroom. So it doesn't matter if you go to any of the male washrooms, you just want to go to a male washroom, whereas a destination would be, say, for example, a store. You want to go to Gap or Banana Republic. You can also manage path types here. Path types are essentially movers, so they're the things that move you from floor to floor, so things like elevators, escalators, and stairs. You can manage a whole bunch of labels here as well, so if you want to put street labels, things like that on top of the map. Devices, if you are doing kiosks, you can manage your kiosks here as well. And then there's a couple of other features, turning on and off layers just to make it easier for you to look at what you want to look at. But in terms of the actual management, the main things are destinations, amenities, path types, and labels and devices. So to just show you how easy it is to manage something, I have this example here where it's destination search. I'm just going to go ahead and refresh it so it gets the latest and greatest data. And this destination search is built on top of that Jibestream retail map that I showed you. If I go here and I type in, say, web, it actually doesn't show up anything because there's nothing here that starts with the word web. So what I'm going to do now, just to show you how powerful our system is, I'm going to go back to our CMS, and I'm going to add a destination. Give me a second. I'm going to add a destination here, and I'm going to call it Webinar Store. And I'm going to say this is a store, and I'm going to put a couple of tags in here. So I'll put shoes, I'll put shirts, and I'll hit submit. And so I'm now added a store called Webinar Store. I'm going to search for it, and it lets me know that it's unplotted. So we've added the metadata related to the store, but we haven't actually put it on the map anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to drag it, and I will put it on this waypoint right here, which is vacant because it's white. And then I will hit publish, and it's going to let me know that I'm going to publish my changes. So I hit publish, and now I'm going to go back to this destination search, which is using that map, and I'm going to refresh it just to get the latest data. And now when I type web, you can see that it immediately shows up, and that unit is highlighted. Just want to show a really quick example of how easily you can make changes to the metadata and how quickly it populates across all the SDK. So this was just an example done with web, but the same exact use case happens on iOS or Android or anywhere you use our SDKs essentially. Okay. So that's pretty much the overview of the CMS. There's obviously a whole bunch into it. I'm not going to go into every single feature, and if you guys are interested in any more, we can have conversations about it later. But this is the gist of it. I'm going to actually move on to the developer portion of the demo. So one of the important things for us is the developer experience. We actually take that really seriously. We realize that we provide a piece of something that you're building, and the developers are actually going to put it together using our SDKs, and so it's very important that we support them well. And the next thing I'm going to show you is essentially some of the stuff we have to support them. So two things we're going to go through today. We're going to talk about the live examples, and we're also going to go through our documentation. So what you see up on the screen right now is our live examples, and essentially what those are is they're code snippets that allow you to see different use cases for using a map. So the first one that's loaded is just load a map. And if I go down here, you can actually see all the relevant code for loading a map in the web. And you can even make changes to the code and hit run. And for anybody who's familiar with a fork, you can actually fork it and get a unique link and share it and be like, oh, is this what you're looking for? If there's a support issue, you're like, hey, I tried it, here's the code. You can fork it and send it back to us. So really useful. Obviously, you guys can see that this is web code. If you go to download, you actually have the same code available for iOS and Android as well. So really useful. We've gotten great feedback on this. Developers really like it because obviously documentation is great, but developers love to code off code. So it's really useful. So this is the first one. There's about 25, 26 examples here. I'm just going to go through a couple of them to give you an overview of some of the stuff you can do. And if you guys want to have after the call, if you contact our sales department and you don't have access to this, we can get you access to it so you can have a look. So there's load a map here. There is level selector. I guess I'll take you to the floor selector one. So this allows you to switch between floors, really basic. Obviously, you can see the UI, UX for the floor selector is very basic on this one, and it's intentionally done that way because we want to focus the code on how to flip floors. The UI, UX would be something that the developer would decide on how they want to design the floor selector. You could really design it however you'd like. We just kept it very simple here to focus it on the actual floor switching. Here is, I'll go down to navigation. I'll click on draw path number 4. This is wayfinding. So this is just one wayfinding path that you can draw. So this one is a path that is, a black color with a white arrow moving across it with the star as the starting point. So this is just one use case. You can do it a whole bunch of ways, but here's the code for that as well. And you can go ahead and adjust it and make changes as well. The next one I'm going to show you is styling with JSON. One of the really important things to a lot of our clients is the look and feel of the map. So keeping the map consistent with the rest of the app. There's a lot of mapping platforms you'll go out there, you'll see out there when you click on map inside an app, it feels like you're going to a different application. And we want to actually make sure that whenever a user uses our map, that they can style it in such a way that they can really keep the look and feel similar to the rest of their app. So I have one here called Styling with JSON, which shows you how you can style a map. And if I go down, you can actually see a bunch of colors and different layer names. So I'm going to go ahead and I will change this units layer, and I'll pick a different color. So I'm just going to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the units right here are these beige units. And I'm going to hit run, and you'll notice when I hit run that this now changed into a dark blue. I can go ahead and change a more obvious one, let's say the background layer, to A, B, C, D, E, F. And I will hit run, and this green should change to a light blue now. So just gives you an idea of the versatility you have from a colors perspective. You can change stroke width, opacity, things like that as well. So it really gives you the look and feel that you want to achieve. Layer interaction is the other one that I was going to show. So I'll just go down to interactivity. Just letting me know I will discard those changes. This one essentially shows how you can interact with maps. So this one essentially just pops up the name of the unit that you're clicking on. So if I click on this one, it pops up Penny Store, the 455 Cinema, Frida Jeans, things like that. So it's just a very basic implementation of a pop-up card, but it gives you an idea of how you can interact with each unit in the map. And the last one that I wanted to show, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, is the blue dot. This example just shows the blue dot moving. But one of the things I really want to talk about in blue dot is that we have a really customizable blue dot. The constant circle, the alpha, if you want to use an icon, whatever look that you want to achieve from a blue dot perspective, you can use the default, which you see here, or you can, if say your app has a red theme to it, you can make the dot red. If you want an icon that has a little man walking in or a little woman walking in it, you can do that as well. So it really is up to you and the look and feel of how you want to do the blue dot. But one of the things that makes our platform very unique. The next thing that I'm going to go over is the documentation. So we made big strides over the last couple of years on our documentation, and you guys will, if you guys have a look at it, it is very thorough, and it shows you a lot of use cases that you can do in terms of using our maps. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's obviously documentation, but I'll just show you a little bit in terms of what is included. So when you first enter our documentation, you get our releases. So you can get all the release notes. So we've had the annex release and the baby release. When you click on it, you'll get all the release notes, the new features, what's new in the CMS, what's new in the SDKs. You'll get full documentation for the SDKs here as well. So you can open them up, and I can see getting started, different plugins, the native features, so amenities, ClearPath, destination, forest, things like that. iOS has the same thing, web has the same. We also have, for anybody who's a little bit more interested, we have the data models available to you as well if you want to understand how the internal workings of the SDK happen. We have the CMS, which allows you to see documentation on how to use a CMS. So anybody who's an admin of the map definitely would want to read through that. And then we also have APIs. So if you ever decide to do direct integration with the Jibestream solution, so for example, the names of destinations are stored somewhere else for you. And you want the names to be pushed to the Jibestream solution, but the source of truth is elsewhere. You can use our APIs to build a microservice to push the information to us. Okay, so that kind of concludes the developer portion of the demo. I'm going to move on to the use case portion now. Just give me a second while I do that. Okay, everyone, thanks for hanging on. I just pulled up the Jibestream iPhone. You should be able to see an iPhone on your screen right now, and I'm just going to walk you through the use cases on a mobile device. So I'm going to walk you through 4 use cases today. The first one being wayfinding. So I'll go ahead and open up wayfinding. And what you see on the screen right now is actually the Jibestream office. This is where we currently are situated doing this webinar. And I'll show you how wayfinding works. So keep in mind, when I show this to you, this is one implementation of how wayfinding could work. It really is up to you and your developers to come up with your own unique way of doing it, or you can definitely take what we have and use that as a default. So I'm going to go ahead and click the from, and I'm going to go from Crow's Nest, which is one of our meeting rooms, to Artillery, which is another meeting room, and I'm going to hit go. And it's going to draw a line, and the blue dot's going to start moving. And now it's almost reached Artillery. And now it's arrived at Artillery. You can also do accessibility routing, so I'm going to turn on accessibility. I'm going to hit go again. And now you can see that it's actually taken a totally different route, and that's because the back route that it originally took had stairs, but the front route, which is taken currently, has an elevator. The stairs obviously cannot be used if you turn on accessibility, so that's why it's taken a different route. You can also do things like navigate from people. So this is actually my name, and I'm going to navigate to, say, Captain's Quarters, where we're currently sitting, and I'm going to hit go, and that's navigating from my desk to the meeting room. So obviously this is very close, but in a large campus, it really is useful to navigate to people and their desks. That's just one example of how you can use wayfinding. The next one that I was going to show is parking. So this is another use case. And the reason I like to show this use case is it really talks through how you can connect to different systems. And it's not just indoor positioning systems. It could be different systems that really, even us at Jibestream have not thought of yet, but knowing your business would think of. So this is a parking integration, and what you can do is you can take parking data and overlay that data on top of the map to give people an indication of how busy a parking lot currently is. And so as you see, I can just kind of click through it, and it shows different colors. Obviously, this would vary from time to time, but the idea is when a user pops open your map, at any given point, you can get the real-time parking data if you have a parking system installed, and you can overlay it on top of the map so they have a visual indicator of how busy a lot is, and then they can go and park at the appropriate lot, and they're not wasting their time in very busy lots. The next one I'm going to show you is the multi-stop. We call it multi-stop, but this particular use case is very related to warehousing, and what it does is it allows you to navigate to multiple different stops. And so this particular one would be maybe an integration into a picking software at a warehouse. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and it's now going to navigate me to the first bin location. So as a picker, I get to the first bin location, I hit scan, and now it's going to navigate me to the second bin location. I get to the second bin location, I hit scan again. It's going to now navigate me to the third bin location. So this is really useful if you've got a picker at a warehouse that's staying new to the environment. They don't actually know where everything is. Really, really great to help them get around. And then I'm going to hit scan one more time, and I'm going to return back home. Okay. And the last use case I'm going to show you is called asset tracking. So we've talked about it a little bit here. What we do is we do the visualization of assets, and we integrate with a whole bunch of RTLS providers and allow you to really visualize any assets that you want and navigate to them, as well as navigate to the nearest one, navigate to the nearest type, as Meg mentioned earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and you can now see the assets starting to move on the map. And so this use case, it's a hospital use case. There's wheelchairs, heart rate monitors, infusion pumps. I'm going to go ahead and you can see I can open up the data related to that specific infusion pump. I can go ahead and open up the data related to the second infusion pump as well. And I can also navigate to the nearest infusion pump. And this is showing you navigating to a static asset, for example. So an infusion pump in our example is not moving, but I can also go ahead and move to, I can go to wheelchairs, and I can say navigate me to the nearest wheelchair. And now it will take me to the nearest wheelchair. So really cool use case. I mean, if you have a bunch of moving assets, like in a hospital, everything is on wheels. You can now track it, navigate to it, and you can do this on a mobile device, or if you want, we've had customers do it on a more of a dashboard interface where it'll be in a nursing station, for example, just so everything is tracked, and if somebody needs to find something, they can easily find it. So we get asked, like, what, a lot about what are our top features and things like that. So what we did was we went back and we really thought about what do customers really love about Jibestream, and we put down our top 3 features. So the first one that we constantly get talked about is really changing mapping metadata across multiple platforms instantly. So I kind of demoed that earlier, where I added the webinar store, and you immediately saw on the SDK side that it was propagated. So that is a huge thing. It really helps with not just adding stores and adding amenities, but for example, let's say an area of a mall or a hospital has a spill, and you close down that area. You disable those paths. If somebody goes and opens the app after you've closed those areas, it now will not use that for wayfinding instantly. So it really is done so quickly that you can do it for something like a 1-hour closure because of spillage, for example. The ability to customize the look and feel of the map. So another really important one. We've had a lot of customers that want to stay on brand, and this is really key. There's been mapping platforms that people have used in the past where when you click on the map, it really feels like you're going to a separate application, and that's not our goal. Our goal is for everything to look really seamless for your end users, so they feel like one developer, one shop has done the entire application. You're not leaving anywhere to get the map. And the last one is providing wayfinding with the Blue Dot experience using any RTLS or IPS provider. This is really picking up, obviously, it started as wayfinding, but now it's really picking up with Blue Dot. People are very used to that whole Apple Maps, Google Maps experience, and indoor spaces are actually getting much bigger, and so people are investing in the hardware technology and now visualizing it on a map like Jibestream. So this brings us to pretty much the end of our webinar. And so before we leave you, we like to ask you one thing: where can mapping help you? So the reason we ask that is because we've showed you a whole bunch of use cases today, but really we don't know all of them, and we really think that you knowing your business and understanding our technology will give us insights into where mapping can help you. So ask yourself this, and then you can definitely reach out to us if you have any questions or answers. You can talk to your PM if you have one, or email info@jibestream.com, and we'd be happy to go through your use cases and talk through how we can help.